Hi everyone, I'm Joe. Today it's time for me to do a book review of Surface Detail written by Iain M. This was first published in 2010. It is a science fiction novel and it is the 9th novel of 10 written within Iain M. culture universe. A small note to add on that matter, however, this may be the 9th of 10th novels, but each of the 10 novels are fully independent. They are not sequels or directly related to one another. They share the same universe and the same general history of the culture, and that is about it. You can read any of the 10 novels as the first novel without having read any of the previous novels. Anyway, so I will first of all start with a synopsis. This book has two intertwined storylines, the first of which is an abuse survivor who has been abused since she was young by this rich, powerful guy on this one planet at the edge of the culture universe, which is not directly part of the culture, but they interact with the culture to a certain degree. And basically, at the start of the book, she manages to get away from this rich, abusive person, and she manages to escape basically to the culture. And she's not happy by the fact that of what happened to her, obviously. And basically, she's very angry and understandably, and wants to have revenge on this very rich, self-important guy. And indeed, that is where the second part of the intertwined plot lines come in, because this very rich, self-important guy is the owner, at least for now, of virtual hell. Now, in the culture universe, and obviously there are many other civilizations, hundreds and hundreds of them in fact, you can upload your consciousness into a purely digital form. So essentially your mind is on a hard drive. Think of it in terms of think of the Matrix films basically, and you can live your life in that way with your body essentially in a form of stasis. However, some people, their minds will go not necessarily where they want them to, and they will end up being sent to a virtual hell, which, due to the fact that this is entirely digital, time has got a different perspective there. You can go hundreds of years in virtual space with barely any time in real space going on. So some of the people that go to these virtual hells are in hell where they can experience it, because this is obviously very advanced technology, getting tortured, mutilated, all sorts of horrific things for several decades or millennia. So the people that go there can get broken pretty badly, frankly. And unsurprisingly, this creates a very moral sort of uneasy zone, because a lot of people don't want the hells to exist. This rich guy happens to own them for now. Some people, and he's included, they're not sure if he wants to sell them on or change how they work somehow. It's all a little bit murky, unsurprisingly, considering these are virtual hells. And this creates some pretty major problems, because frankly this leads to a near war situation, because some people do not want the hells to exist, some people do, and people get very upset about this, because you're talking about somewhere where people are actively harmed for a very long time, and sometimes it's not even of their own choosing, so it's against their free will. So it goes from there, the plotline does, where you've got an abuser in charge of things, a victim wanting to get revenge, and the universe and the culture civilization are very undecided on what they exactly want, because the culture doesn't like being directly involved in things, but sometimes they are, and in this case they are a bit more directly involved than they would like to be, and this presents problems because they always try to present themselves as, sort of away from the action and sort of more like just manipulating in the background. And now people are sort of forcing them to, at least visibly, apparently, to take a more direct stance. That's problematic, to say the least. The two worlds, as far as the people in the hell is concerned, is called, are the real and the unreal, which is pretty obvious to tell which is which. And this is all due to extremely advanced technology, which the culture has in abundance. Because, and I'll give a quick background to the culture. The culture is essentially the humanity that has expanded to the stars. We've expanded to a point where we barely even like humanity is today, and we have access to lots of resources in the endless ones due to mining asteroids, comets, other worlds. So money is basically not a thing in the culture universe, which comes into an interesting sort of question in the book, because of course this guy who owns the virtual hells, he is very rich on his world, but as far as the culture is concerned, he's just a normal person, because they don't care about the fact that he may have more money than anybody else on the planet combined virtually. They don't care, but he does. So it's an interesting situation. The culture also has massive advanced medical technology. They have all sorts of technology that actually is very intrusive to the human body. You can have drug glands in your head where you can essentially, at will, you can just choose to inject certain chemicals which will calm you down or get you excited or get you into whatever state of mind that you literally want to be in at any one time. It's remarkably powerful and remarkably strange from a practical point of view. There are many other technologies as well. There's a technology that is introduced in this book called a neuralase, which essentially is one where if you are essentially killed for any reason, then your mind is essentially uploaded to the nearest sort of station essentially, and you can essentially be recreated in a new body that is identical to your original body. So it's kind of like literally defeating death, because you can't die, because you can just keep being reborn essentially in a new body that is exactly like you were. It's extremely powerful technology, and it makes people in the culture, I think, quite odd in terms of their sort of perspective, because of course they don't even have to fear death anymore, and that is one of the major aspects that is brought into play in this book, because when you literally don't have to fear death anymore, because you can just literally be reborn, all intents and purposes, then what do you do with your life if you've got unlimited time? Because you can be rejuvenated and things, so you can essentially live virtually forever as well. So how do you better yourself if you know you have all the time in the universe? What's the point in doing things now? Some people might end up just leaving things a bit longer and frankly leading a fairly aimless existence. It's an interesting question, and that is one of the many aspects in the culture books that I like, and in this one it's delved into an interesting way due to the very rich abusive guy in it. And there are many other questions asked due to both the environment and characters, and just the world that both virtual and real that the characters inhabit. One piece of technology that exists within these books is minds, which are essentially fully sentient AIs. One of them is on a ship, and this ship is helping the abuse victim. And minds are a very strange idea overall, but they are a brilliant one, because they are incredibly powerful, and the mind basically run the culture and run the human world as we know it. And it presents problems, because it's like, who is in charge ultimately and who is more important? Because you get the impression in the book that the minds are obviously considering themselves far more important than the humans. Humans, we can just reproduce at will. Minds take effort to make something truly unique because they are extremely advanced. So they put more importance on the minds than they do on humanity. And when they are in control of us, essentially, which they pretty much are, with government and such, this presents ethical questions on who is in charge and for what reason, who is giving the minds power is one of questions that could be brought up, and this is an interesting novel because the questions that it asks of you and the subjects that you will think, and indeed the subjects that I will take away from this, will be different from other people, because there are a lot of subjects. The ones that I particularly noticed and that struck a chord with me will be different, at least some of them will be, from you. If you read this book, you will take away different things than I am, and we both will take away things that another person would take away from. So everybody takes away their own elements, and it's quite hard to talk about every element, and frankly I'm not going to try because there's too many. I want to say that the few other elements that caught my attention were the ethics of the virtual hells, because the virtual hells are essentially like a sort of prison system, thoughts just like 10 times worse, and who controls them, who gets sent there, and who controls who gets sent there. It's a very grey moral zone, because, well, sometimes black. It's hard to say, but it's interesting to think about, and frankly a bit disturbing to think about. For the reason that, and this is the other point that I noticed, is justice in the book. When you have a culture that has no interest in money, because frankly it's no need of it, how do you preserve justice and sort of the idea of right or wrong, or should you even try? Because anybody can do virtually anything in the culture universe, so how, when anybody can do anything, is there right or is there wrong? It's just merely a different way of living. Quite simply, if you do not like what is going on with your part of the world, you just move to another world in the culture, of which there are thousands. So justice is an interesting one when you can literally walk away from anything because there's no resources, no problems. You can just move where you are, and problems can sort of be just walked away from in a very simplistic way. I mean, it's not as simplistic as that, but sort of. And yeah, this presents moral dilemmas, or it could do, depending on how you think of it. And it's these sort of questions that make this book, and indeed all culture novels, really interesting and fascinating to read. The world is fantastically well built as always. The characters fit well within the world, and indeed within the larger culture universe as a whole. The questions that it asks are frankly fantastic. As I said, each person that reads this book will take away different elements from the book depending on what they personally find and stands out to them. And in summary, I would highly recommend this culture novel by Iain M. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it as the first culture novel if you have not read any previously to the culture universe. I would start with one of the earlier ones, because this has a certain writing style that I think might help if you've read at least one earlier novel. This could be your second, but I wouldn't recommend it as your first, because there are certain things that I think are handy to know that you might learn from another earlier culture novel. Frankly, this is fractionally more complex and complicated in terms of world building and such, and I think it's beneficial to reading an earlier novel. And with that said, that is it for this review. So if you've read this novel or you would like to, then please leave a comment and we can have a talk about it. The Goodreads link to this book I will link in the description box below, along with all my social media links, Patreon, that sort of things, if you're interested in any of that. And with that said, that is it for this video. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you another day. Bye for now.